2, 1. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, the only way Proposition's case works out and they're able to unlock their undersubstantiated but big impact harm is if a hostile takeover happens, the company goes berserk and runs the school to the ground. But at the same time, the characterization they give about them being profit driven becomes an answer in and of itself that I flipped in the top of my speech in order to be able to explain the means, motivation, and capacity for them to be able to do it well. Let's talk about this debate why side proposition cannot take this. Number one, they largely limited this debate to being like, yo, corporate sponsorships are just them gonna like buy a majority share and wreck things. That's unlikely to happen given the slew of material that we told you about. The point of information I gave earlier was quite important, wherein I said if any of these things were disproportionately skewed to that corporation, then you unlock the mech I gave in my speech about there being a negotiation process and the school can always say no. Just like what Matthew and Jaron also talked about, is that there are going to be multiple incentives for the corporation to be able to do this partnership well and fulfill their end of the bargain. Wanting to be able to have good optics and not get cancelled on social media or in the world, being able to unlock and hire a skilled workforce like what happened in Matthew's school. This in and of itself become capitalist incentive structures to be able to ensure that they don't get absolutely crazy just because money's involved. The second thing is about the worst case of these things happening. Because I recognize, sure, what if that does happen? But in terms of like weighing that, that's only like the very minority, less than 0.5% chance of happening. On the average, these partnerships are not going to be skewed to anyone. As what they say, right? The saying, the best negotiations happen when both parties don't walk out happy. Meaning, a degree of compromise and negotiation is likely to happen from that particular deal, a round-winning mechanism we talked about to prevent the biggest harm that they accuse us of. Third, a lot of the unresponded and standing material that you have coming from our side of the house. Pick one, right, as a tipping point to judge this debate. Number one, you have material wealth and the creation of facilities and infrastructure in order to be able to make things better. Not just for the Ivy Leagues who have huge funds and endowment, but on the average majority of schools who have a shoestring budget, and we don't want them to be burdening the Ministry and Department of Education to have to fund their shit. Number two, you bridge the gap between theory or books, which is what you learn in school, and try to make it more practical wherein they're able to do things like get real world experience through internships, industry study, and ironically enough, they're going to be able to finish that dissertation, finish that master's, probably in those new facilities that were built, which on the comparative, it can happen, but it presupposes you have the money for it. That's why the other POI I talked about like loans and pressuring the government, also unlock the harms that happen exclusively and likely on their side that they accuse us of. Ladies and gentlemen, this debate is not about corporate funding in itself or sponsorship being good or bad, but about the extent of which. And we think we have to push that extent and lower the barriers of entry for that to happen in order to be able to, on average, increase the quality of life of education for that student, for them to be able to have a meaningful role in school, but more importantly, prepare them for the world after. And for all of those reasons, we are very proud to stand on side negative.